Does it worry you that you might be spreading misinformation? How do you overcome that? Yeah, no, dude, that's a really good question. But no, like, I genuinely do worry a lot that I spread misinformation on stream.
Ladies and gentlemen and salami of viewers, welcome back to a brand new YouTube video. I hope you had a good day, because I certainly have. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the most recent Tubbo controversy. Now, this all stems from a conversation that Tubbo was having on one of his most recent streams, and it's safe to say people were genuinely not happy with what Tubbo said, and I think it's incredibly unfair. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get into what Tubbo said on stream, if you haven't already, please consider leave a like, subscribing, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. It really helps out the channel, especially if you do enjoy the videos. But without further ado, let's dive into the topic at hand. On one of Tubbo's recent live streams, Tubbo was having an open conversation which involved the topic of pro-lifers.
I see young people, bro. I see young people being pro-life, and I'm like, this has just got to be like failure of education at this point. You know what I mean?
This conversation then turned into where these people might get their beliefs from and why they believe the things they do, which is the bit that has gained controversy.
They just follow their parents before learning. I don't even think that's necessarily true. Young men are falling so quickly into the incel/right pipeline, and it's depressing to see. Honestly, is that totally the case?
One thing to note immediately is it's pretty clear that Tubbo is having an open conversation on stream with his audience about these topics. He's just putting his thoughts and views out there and having this open dialogue. The topic of conversation here is about the vast amount of young men falling into the quote-unquote right-wing and incel pipeline.
Young men are falling so quickly into the incel/right pipeline, and it's depressing to see.
I think something that's pretty important to state here is, of course, this all comes down to what you see as people being right-wing or going down the incel pipeline. People are going to have different versions of what that looks like, so of course people are going to differ based on what that is.
Is that totally the case? Because I don't know. I feel like it's easy to think that because it's reported on a lot in the news as well. But also because they're so loud if they do fall into that pipeline. Like, I want to like firmly believe like it's a vocal minority.
I mean, ultimately, there are lots of younger men that are quote-unquote right-wing, and there are also lots of younger men at the moment that are also quote-unquote left-wing. It comes down to what you think each of those terms actually means and what you believe certain people's political beliefs actually are. Because different media outlets with different agendas will tell you a different story. If you are somebody who is left-wing, they're going to tell you that lots of younger men are falling into the right-wing incel pipeline. But if you are somebody who is right-wing, people are going to say the exact opposite to what people who are left-wing are saying. I mean, ultimately, there is no problem with Tubbo questioning this if it's actually as bad as the media and other people are representing. This is an open discussion, and that's a view that he can have and talk about. So I think it's important to note as well that Tubbo isn't saying that this doesn't happen, he's just saying that he doesn't think it's as bad as what's being represented.
And like a silent majority. I think the Andrew Tate revolution probably didn't help. Dude, was that as big as it really was? Because I was also like huge and had huge influence in the same time that Andrew Tate was at like his peak. And like, bro, my community was like the antithesis of that.
Now, I think there's a few things to say here. Of course, Andrew Tate was absolutely massive in his peak. Secondly, when Tubbo was in his peak, Andrew Tate was not in his peak, and vice versa. And thirdly, Tubbo's audience are more left-leaning, so he probably wouldn't have seen the effects that Andrew Tate did have. Ultimately, Tate did have a big impact on younger men for a while, but I don't ultimately disagree with Tubbo questioning if it was as bad as people were saying, because ultimately, towards the end of the whole media frenzy with Tate, people were drumming up how bad the influence Tate had on younger men actually was, because whilst it definitely was there, people started just making up shit. Here I'm talking about the influence and impact this actually had on younger men, not actually Tate's actions. I want to make that clear because there's lots of bad faith people at the moment trying to clip me out of context.
It didn't feel like I don't know. I feel like it's easy to have like a spyglass view on like a small microcosm. But I don't know. Your community was girls, lol. At peak, my community was 50-50, maybe 60-40.
Like I said earlier about Tubbo's community and what Tubbo would have seen still stands here, and another critique I would have towards Tubbo here is he does seem like he's stumbling over his words a little bit, and I get it, it's on an alt stream, he's not trying to have a serious conversation, he's just having this open dialogue, which I do appreciate, but if you are going to be talking about these topics, you know, in any capacity, having your thoughts together in any which way and just taking a bit of time is helpful. Whilst I do have a few critiques for this clip at hand, like I do for most clips, I honestly do not understand the vast amount of backlash that Tubbo got here. I could explain everything wrong with this, but it's not my fucking job, nor Chat's. When will he learn not to broadcast his ignorance on stream instead of just doing research? How long has he held this view? I thought he'd improved from last time. How utterly depressing. Take away this white privileged guy's microphone. We all know who I'm talking about. Truthfully, if you care about educating, having a conversation, bring voices of the people who experience stuff on to speak and give their perspective and talk, not talk in a position of privilege, and like every issue will also affect/reach you. Goes for anyone. A user puts, I was watching the stream, also what did he say that was bad? Everything was spot on, especially what he said about religion in my opinion. Someone responds with his comments about how Andrew Tate had no impact on young men and the treatment of women. All of his Tory statements he's made over the years. It's frequent and I just think he needs to be fully educated before he makes statements. Not hate, but just criticism of his behaviour. Again, another incredibly disingenuous person because at no point did Tubbo state that Andrew Tate had absolutely zero impact on young men and the treatment of women.
I think the Andrew Tate revolution probably didn't help. Dude. Was that as big as it really was?
At no point in this clip did Tubbo say that Andrew Tate had zero impact on young men and the treatment of women. Isn't it funny that you say that Tubbo should be educated when you haven't even bothered to educate yourself on what Tubbo actually said before making a statement on it? Traitors like Tubbo simply don't do enough activism to get away with saying brash shit about incel culture. User then responded saying, what kind of things do you think he said? That user then responded by saying he said that Andrew Tate hasn't had an effect on young men. Insane to say when his ideology has led to thousands of violent hate crimes. When he says this, he's specifically referring to this little bit that Tubbo said.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it's easy to have like a spyglass view on like a small microcosm. But I don't know.
I think that user's take is incredibly disingenuous, but what I will say is, again, Tubbo's wording and how he articulates things there doesn't help him. When he's saying, yeah, but I don't know, and it's very disconjointed, it has allowed people to be disingenuous and take things like this and put it in their own narrative. The user put, 1 woman every 3 days in the UK, 140 women every day globally, 2,300 more women in 2023 than 2022. I found these statistics in seconds. It isn't hard to educate yourself before practically belittling the danger women face every single day. Now, Tubbo actually responded to this, and this is what he had to say. Hey, I absolutely had no intention of belittling, and I'm so sorry it came across that way. This was me asking chat questions about the issues that they care about, as I want to be proactive in talking about issues that are important to my community. I totally agree that my wording here is very bad, and I'll do better. Which, whilst I think he could have definitely worded a few things better, I don't think his wording was very bad, and that he should quote-unquote do better. What he said in the clip wasn't that egregious. Yes, I think he could have constructed himself in a better way, but not to the extent where he needs to do a public apology like that.
Like, I don't claim to preach the absolute truth. Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not being like, this is the way you should also think. Because chat know that I am a college dropout. Chat know that I have no qualification to my name. They know I have never interacted with political science ever. Like, and I feel like by just being totally upfront that I don't know everything can also be like, I don't know. I feel like also there's an issue with people being scared to say stuff because they feel like they don't know anything. And I kind of want to be here and be like, hey, I also don't know everything.
Ultimately, whilst I think there are a few critiques to have with the clips, I think it's been blown way out of proportion yet again. I think people are being incredibly disingenuous with how they are discussing Tubbo in this clip, and I think it's a shame that Tubbo kind of folded in on that. Just to wrap up this video, whilst actually looking for posts about this whole thing, I saw lots of people defending Tubbo from misinformation that was going around and claims that was being made against Tubbo's name because of this whole situation that was slandered slander and people being disingenuous. What I found very funny about these certain individuals calling out people for being disingenuous, saying things without proof and making these slanderous claims against Tubbo, was some of these people were the exact same people that were making slanderous claims against me, calling me misogynistic based off absolutely nothing, bar that Adam McIntyre called me a misogynist. I think it's very funny people will actively call out people being incredibly disingenuous, malicious, cutting things out of context, false claims, and things that basically have no evidence to back them up when it's about a content creator that they like or agree with, but when it's against somebody that has said something that they don't particularly agree with, they are completely fine with spreading those said things that they are speaking out against when it's about somebody that they actually like. Mentioning this not only because I found it funny, but also because it is a really big issue within the Minecraft scene. People having incredibly flimsy morals and integrity when it comes to having opinions and takes, and I think it's something important to kind of bring up and mention. But yes, now I will wrap up this video and we'll stop waffling, but everybody watching, what was your thoughts on all of this? Please feel free to comment down below, and much other than you guys to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, so you don't miss a future Slop Meal video. But I've been your host Samuel, you've been watching the Tubbo Slop Pick, and I will catch you in the next YouTube video. Goodbye.